back to another weekly wrap-up video, this being week 12 of the Delaware General Assembly's legislative year. My name is Matt Revel. I'm Director of Policy and Communications for the Delaware State Senate Republican Caucus, and today I am joined by
Deanna Killen, Chief of Staff for the Senate Republican Caucus.
And we're welcoming back Senator Pettyjohn again.
Yeah, great to be back. It's been a few of these videos since I've been on. So yeah.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah, great
Pleasure
to be back.
Having you.
Yep.
So, Senator, there were a number of important pieces of legislation that came through the chamber this week. It was heard in committee, various things, but there were a couple that we really wanted to touch on, get your opinion on. The first one being Senate Bill 147.
Okay.
Yes, Senate Bill 147 relating to use of force.
Right.
This act codifies a reasonableness requirement for lethal and non-lethal use of force.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think this just strictly applied to law enforcement, but it actually applies to the general public. Would you like to talk about that?
So, Senate Bill 147 is a pretty complex bill. It's one of those bills that came out of the Law Enforcement Accountability Task Force, and even though it came out of that task force, it not just applies to our law enforcement professionals out there, but it applies to the general public as well in instances where they have to use lethal or non-lethal force. Currently, as the law is written, if you are involved in a situation where you have to use that force, you are judged based on what you believe at that point in time. So if you're in a situation where for example, somebody's coming at you, it is what you think you have to do at that point in time based on the circumstances, surrounding that situation. This replaces that from what you believe as a person that has to use that force to what a reasonable person would believe. Now, part of the questions that we have about that is, what is that reasonable standard? There are situations that somebody who may have to judge this, if they're on a jury, may never really know what that situation's like. And one of the examples that I used with a sponsor when I was talking to her about it is domestic violence victims. If you have a situation where a woman has been abused for a very long time, and there's something that just happens that drives that person, whether it's a man or a woman, past that point that they think they have to use force in defending themselves or a child or somebody else, how can somebody who's not been in that situation know what is reasonable or what is not reasonable? So we're really changing the way that a person has to think about defending themselves now, not only law enforcement, but everybody out in the public as well. It's a dangerous slope to go down. It is. They say it's an objective. It's a change to make it objective. I don't think it's objective. Because there's no definition around it. It's very subjective. It's very subjective based on the prosecutor, the attorney general, the jury. It's going to be subject to what they believe is reasonable or not reasonable when a person has to take that step that could change their lives significantly. So a lot of angst about that, about this bill, about the way the wording is, and really how it changes dramatically how somebody can defend themselves in the state of Delaware.
So it appears to be very ambiguous. What one person considers to be reasonable, another person may not consider reasonable.
Exactly, and that's the kind of the crux of the argument is, you're not taking what a person believes at the time of the incident. You're almost Monday morning quarterbacking that. Giving hindsight, when somebody has a chance to look at everything and analyze, over a course of days or weeks or months, when somebody who took that step and used that force may have only had a split second. And when you're talking about a life and death situation, you can't overanalyze that. Otherwise, you may not make it out of there alive.
So, Senator, what's the status of the bill and what happens next?
Yeah, so it is a Senate bill, so it did pass the Senate. So we'll go over to the House of Representatives for their consideration as well. So members of the public that wish to continue to comment on the bill do have that opportunity when it goes over to the House.
So, Senator, another very important piece of legislation that was voted on this week in the Senate was Senate Bill 7, which was a substitute bill, right?
Yes, Senate Substitute 1 to Senate Bill 7.
And so in that bill, it lists a number of very serious crimes. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it reinstitutes mandatory cash bail.
No, it doesn't mandate cash bail.
All right.
The presumption for those serious crimes, if somebody's accused of committing them, it changes it to presumption of cash bail, unless there are circumstances where the person shouldn't have cash bail. And these are all, these are serious crimes. I think it's a whole list of Class A felonies, which are, our most serious felonies that we have here in the state of Delaware. Things including, rape and, abuse of minors and some other just very, very serious crimes that we have in Delaware. And what this does, it kind of sets the expectation out of the gate that if somebody's accused of these crimes, that they're going to require cash bail at their first bail hearing. Now, after the first bail hearing, if they are not able to make that cash bail, there is a bail review later on so that another judge gets to take a look at it. But this is the initial setting of the bail, usually by the Justice of the Peace Courts when somebody is taken in front of their after their arrest. We've heard from a lot of constituents. You open the newspaper and you see, somebody's charged with gun crimes and they're released on, a $10,000, unsecured bail, or $10,000 secured but not a cash bail. Cash bail is, except for preventative detention, is the most stringent bail that we have. That means you've got to produce that amount of money in order to be released from prison, pending trial or disposition of the charges. So that is, except for keeping somebody in custody, that's, the most extreme that we can do. And again, it is reserved for the most severe crimes that we have in the state of Delaware. And really, this should only be used by the courts when the presumption of guilt is great. So there's, very clear evidence, convincing evidence at that point in time. Of course, everybody is innocent until proven guilty, but if the weight of the evidence is very heavy and they may be a risk for not showing up to courts, this is something that the courts should be doing, is holding somebody with cash bail, at the maximum that they can, to ensure that, one, they're not a danger to the public if they're released, and two, that they actually show up for trial if they are released.
So, in your opinion, do you think this kind of corrects some of the unintended consequences from House Bill 204 that passed a couple of years ago?
Yeah, several General Assemblies ago. It'll help. It'll definitely help. When that bill was instituted, that's a bill that I didn't support. I think I either went no or not voting on the bill, just because of some really serious concerns that we had in terms of the pretrial assessment tool that the Justice of the Peace Court was going to be using. It was a tool that they said, hadn't been fully developed yet, but they wanted to pass the bill anyway. That bill, the pretrial assessment tool was completed, it was instituted, but then we started getting reports, out of the newspaper that we had these instances of people being released for some pretty serious crimes, crimes against other people, not a quote-unquote victimless crime, but crimes against other people that were getting released, with very minimal surety bond, who could have been a danger to other people out in the community. We actually saw there was an individual that was out on bail here in Delaware, and they ended up committing, murder not too long ago. So, we have evidence that the system was broken. We were hearing from our constituency that, they were getting frustrated seeing these reports. The court system seemed to not really be getting the intent of what we were trying to do. So this is a little bit more of a clarification. Of course, if the judge feels, and bail is something that, one, it's supposed to protect the public from somebody that's dangerous, but two, it's really meant to make sure that somebody comes back to hear the charges and to go through the process. We're hearing from our constituents that they were getting frustrated that these individuals that were being charged with these very serious crimes were out on the streets usually the same day, and we were getting actually a lot of pushback from law enforcement about it too, and a lot of frustration from them.
So, Senator, this week, the Legislative Hall finally partially opened up to the public, limited participation. What are your thoughts about that?
It's good to see the public back in here again. Looking up in the gallery and actually seeing members of the public that are watching us do the work that we do. It's a step. It's a small step, in my opinion. 25 people per chamber maximum. And looking up there, you can tell there's a lot of people that don't show up. Because there's definitely not 25 people up there. But it is a small step going toward getting the public back involved fully and engaged in the process. Still, committee hearings are being held virtually. The public is not allowed to participate in person. They are still limited to Zoom. I'm of the mindset that with all of the other precautions that are being taken out there, with vaccinations going up. You go to DMV on a Wednesday and see people, crowded in there like they are just about every Wednesday at DMV. There's really no reason why we shouldn't be open back to the public, not only for the session days, but for committees as well. Now, I'm not saying that we should get rid of Zoom. I actually like the fact that the public is able to participate in Zoom, but as I've said all along, that should be in addition to, not in lieu of, an in-person session and committee hearing schedule.
Agreed, and that's something our caucus has been pushing for quite some time.
Yeah, I think just about every member of our caucus really believes in that, and it's about transparency. It's about being open government. It's about us as elected officials literally facing the constituents who are affected by the bills that we're hearing either in committee or voting on the floor. And I think that's very important that we do have that face-to-face accountability and conversation with our constituents here in Delaware in the building, in their own building. Legislative Hall is not our building. This is their building, and I think because it is their building, they should all absolutely be allowed in.
Well, speaking of reopening, it's been about 3 weeks now since a number of the restrictions have been lifted relating to the COVID pandemic, including the mask mandate. It's now gone, at least for those who are vaccinated. But also a lot of the capacity restrictions for many of the businesses. There are some still lingering exceptions, but for the most part, businesses are open, as if they, pre-pandemic. What has the response been from the business owners that you've spoken to?
They love it. They love that they're open, but they're frustrated because they can't get help. And we're seeing a huge problem right now with businesses that are having to curtail their hours, not because of not getting enough business, but they've got too much business for the staff that they have right now. And we've tried to be encouraging the governor to stop the extra unemployment that's being offered out there right now. There are a number of states that have been doing that, but we need to have that incentive for people to actually go back out there and get back to work again. Businesses right now, especially down in the resort area, are paying premium for labor. Definitely upwards of $15 an hour. And that's the market force working to drive those hourly wages up. But I think you're seeing that in a lot of places in Delaware right now. As businesses are opening up, as things are returning to normal, there is a significant shortage in the labor market right now. Hopefully that will be correcting itself here very soon, so that our businesses can not only be at full capacity, but be at full hours as well, because they have the staff to do that. Before we wrap up, I just want to say, we've got an awesome staff that works for us here at Legislative Hall. With our communications and Deanna as chief of staff, and both of you working with policy issues. And a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into researching the bills that are out there, not only from our colleagues on the other side or over in the other chamber, but for the bills that we're proposing as well for within our caucus. And we just have a great staff that works tremendously. You do a tremendous amount of work just based on the number of staff that we have here in our caucus as well. So I just want to say, since we do have our chief of staff here with us this week, that we have, probably the best staff here in this building that just works tremendously hard. So thank you for your leadership with that. And, all of our sincere thanks from our caucus members to you and to you, Matt, and to the rest of our staff for just a really job well done.
Well, Senator, thank you for that. And it's a pleasure working with you and the other 6 members in our caucus. And Deanna, thank you for joining us today. It was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Well, anyway, so this wraps up another weekly wrap-up video. Be sure to like and subscribe to all our social media pages. Sign up for Senator Pettyjohn's newsletter and that of our other members.
And check out our new website as well.
Yes. I'd be remiss not to say that. Visit www.Delaware.Senate.com. That's www.Delaware.Senate.com. It'll be somewhere on the screen at the end of this video. But anyway, thank you and see you next week.